All right, let's go ahead and get started. Yes. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Jesuit Values Panel. My name's Isaac Kim. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm one of the new student orientation coordinators. This presentation will discuss Georgetown's Jesuit values with some of our chaplains. I will now introduce Father Greg Schenden to welcome you. Father Schenden is our Director of Campus Ministry. He's a leader amongst Georgetown's chaplains as well as staff within the Multi-Faith Office of Campus Ministry. He's also a member of the Society of Jesus as of 1997. I will now pass it off to Father Schenden.
Thank you, Isaac. And once again, you've heard it many times over these past few days, but welcome. Welcome to Georgetown. And thank you for saying yes to Georgetown. You heard earlier this morning at the convocation, Interim President Groves speak of Georgetown and its place in this 500-year-old tradition of Jesuit education that goes all the way back to St. Ignatius of Loyola, our founder, the founder of the Society of Jesus. And President Groves talked a bit about that and about us being, the oldest Catholic and Jesuit institution here in the U.S. Just over 235 years here. I want to touch upon something, go a little bit deeper about this notion that he spoke of in terms of our tradition of interfaith dialogue and interfaith life here at Georgetown. This isn't something we just came up with recently or yesterday. This goes back to our very founding. As you all know, I would hope by now, our founder, John Carroll, founded Georgetown in 1789. In 1787, when Carroll wrote the proposal for what he titled this Academy on the Potomac, there's one line in this proposal for Georgetown that is in all capital letters. And that's a line that states students of all religious traditions will be admitted to the academy and will be encouraged to live out the faith lives of their families. Some would say that's relatively progressive today for a Catholic priest to be saying that. It was certainly relatively forward-thinking and looking in 1787. Why did Carroll include that in all caps in the proposal for Georgetown? Carroll himself grew up in the Maryland colony, wanted to get educated actually at the Ivies. He wanted to go to one of the Ivies, but was not able to go to one of the Ivies because he was Catholic. So he went off to Europe to get educated. When he came back, entered the Jesuits, and decided to found this school. And part of his reasoning for that line about students of all religious traditions and no traditions was because of this notion that on the receiving end of religious marginalization, he realized he wanted this institution to be open to everybody. And then in many ways, that being open to everybody and that notion of belonging that we talk a lot about here is founded not, it's a spiritual grounding. It is not politically or ideologically based. It is our spiritual grounding. And our spiritual grounding lived out in an interreligious life here at Georgetown. These Spirit of Georgetown virtues or values that we're going to be talking about and that you see hanging around campus on the blue banners, again, they're not uniquely Catholic or uniquely Jesuit, these virtues or values. They are Dharmic values, they are Muslim values, they are Baptist values, they're Episcopal values, they're Jewish values, they're Orthodox values, they're humanist values. But I think what is so key is that our grounding is spiritually based. It's based on something that is timeless, that is something that is transcendent. And these notion of these values that you see on the banners, and of which we'll speak shortly, my friends and colleagues from campus ministry, I think it's important to recognize they're both aspirational. These are what root us, what we aspire to each day, but they're also prompts to hold us accountable for when we veer from our spiritual grounding, from these virtues or values. These virtues or values that inform not just who we are, but also whose we are. as a community here at Georgetown. So with that, it's my privilege and my pleasure to welcome our moderator for this year's Jesuit Values Panel, majoring in Business and Global Affairs from the class of 2028, Maya Belorusskiy. So Maya.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Father Greg. That was amazing. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my honor to welcome you to this year's Jesuit Values Panel. My name is Maya Belorusskiy, and I am a sophomore pursuing a degree in Business and Global Affairs, a joint program through the School of Foreign Service and the McDonough School of Business, with a minor in economics. I'll take this time to talk a little bit about myself and my experience with Jesuit values and campus ministry. A year ago, I was in your shoes, eager to hit the ground running and explore the communities around me. I came to campus carrying the legacy of my Jewish family, having immigrated to the United States from the former Soviet Union in the early 90s. I did not grow up very religious, nor was I used to going to services. But after attending my own Jesuit Values Panel, I saw the need to have difficult yet respectful dialogues across faith, spirituality, and belief systems. I saw how each Jesuit value intersected with the others, and I wanted to help create space for these conversations here at Georgetown. Last year, with the help of student and faculty leaders across campus ministry, I co-founded IDEA, Interfaith Dialogues for Engagement and Awareness, a program dedicated to creating a space for meaningful dialogue among all students on Georgetown's campus. Over the course of last semester, we found solace in a community built from a variety of spiritual and religious backgrounds, while also recognizing and honoring those who do not affiliate with a specific faith. Alongside dialogue, IDEA introduced me to the many interfaith experiences present at Georgetown, from participating in a university-wide iftar during Ramadan, to practicing Christian meditation at the John Main Center, which you should all really check out. It's right across the street from New South. To feeling the colors of holy, campus ministry is bursting with opportunities for you to learn from others. One of my favorite ways to engage has been the weekly chaplains tea, hosted every Tuesday in Healy Hall. This hour-long gathering brings the Georgetown community together to highlight organizations on campus, such as the Georgetown Scholars Program, or spotlight a religious festival, like Dia de los Muertos or Diwali. It's short, sweet, and deeply meaningful. Learning from other communities has also shown me how much there is left to learn within my own. That's why this year, I will be focusing on cultivating intra-faith dialogue, creating space for communities to reflect, ask questions, and grow together. The beauty of campus ministry is that its programs, including the student-run faith groups, are open to these kinds of conversations. I'm excited to contribute to an environment committed to reflection and self-awareness. Continuous reflection and examination brings us to the Jesuit values themselves. As Georgetown students, we're lucky to be a part of a community shaped by strong communal norms. As you listen today, think about which values resonate most with you and start thinking about how they might guide your time here. Of course, this is not a question that you can simply answer or check off a list. It is one that you will live with. As you learn, lead, and serve, let the Jesuit values guide you and hold our community accountable. Challenge yourself and challenge this community to keep growing. Last year, in the midst of political polarization and conflicts abroad, Georgetown students leaned on these values as pillars of resilience. I want to close by returning to Georgetown's spirit of inquiry. As you navigate your relationship with the university, campus ministry, and the Jesuit values, push yourself to dig deeper. Set a goal for yourself. Ask a friend of a different faith to bring you to their service. Explore a tradition that's new to you. Come to an IDEA meeting, or drop by chaplain's tea. Schedule a time to speak with a chaplain and ask questions. Ask away. Keep learning and engaging with the communities around you, whatever your background. The spirit of inquiry is alive on this campus, and I can already see it is alive with all of you. Now, it is my great honor to introduce our campus ministry chaplains, who will each share about a Jesuit value through the lens of their own tradition. Afterward, we'll have time for your questions, and there's a mic right there. The chaplains might not have every answer to every question, but they will certainly inspire you to keep asking. Thank you. Thanks. Now, it is my great honor to introduce our first speaker on the Jesuit Values Panel today, Dr. Jim Wickman. Dr. Jim Wickman is the Director of Catholic Life for Campus Ministry, and he will be talking about the Jesuit value, care for our common home.
Thank you, Maya. Care for our common home is a Jesuit value that's rooted in a document written by Pope Francis in 2015. Pope Francis, of course, at that time was the worldwide leader of the Catholic Church, and he wrote a document called Laudato Si about caring for our environment and calling for a new dialogue about how we care for our environment. A few years after that, here at Georgetown, we adopted that principle of care for our common home as one of our Jesuit values as we seek to expand the conversation on sustainability and environmental justice. As most of you know, a few months ago, the Catholic Church elected a new pope after the death of Pope Francis, and Pope Leo, our new pope, has made care for our common home one of his central themes in these few months of his young papacy. As the leader of the worldwide church, he has encouraged us to continue this focus on care for our common home. He gave a speech on this past summer, and there were a couple things that I found really interesting in it because he talked about care for our common home in terms of relationships. And I think that's so important because what he said was we need to look at, with a contemplative gaze, our relationship with the world and with the environment. And he said that he expanded it by saying that the crisis is called by a rupture in our relationships, not only with the environment, but with God and with each other, with our neighbors. This makes me think of two things. First, I encourage you, New Hoyas, to take time as you begin your Georgetown career to look at the world around you, to look at the things you're doing and think about what you're doing. Think about your friends. Think about how you treat people. Think about how you treat the things around you. That kind of goes opposite of the environment at Georgetown at times, but I really encourage you to do that because it's worth it. Secondly, remember the dignity of all people. Care for our common home is remembering the dignity of the created things, but that includes all people around us and all things around us that are all created by God. Finally, this gives us hope. I believe that care for our common home gives us hope, and we all need hope right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wickman, and I definitely echo that. Now, Rabbi Ilana Zietman, who is the Director for Jewish Life on campus, will be talking about the Jesuit value, people for others.
Hi, everyone. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here with all of you, and welcome to Georgetown. So I think becoming a people for others is first about thinking of our own inner orientation of how we see ourselves vis-a-vis others. And there are various teachings in Jewish tradition that emphasize this inherent value of all human life. And there are many commandments within all of our sacred texts to have empathy and love for each other. An example from our first century sage Hillel, who said, "What is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. That is the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. Go and learn it." Right, so Hillel summed up the essence of many, many centuries at his point of a tradition with many rites and practices and a deep theology as meaning care for others. We have a lot of other teachings that have become well known, I think, throughout faith traditions and our culture, like love your neighbor as yourself from the book of Leviticus. Going back to Hillel, who said, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? But if I am only for myself, what am I? And then the most common, most often repeated commandment in all of the Torah, or the Hebrew Bible, it's repeated 36 times, is you shall not oppress nor wrong the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Right? Invoking our sense of empathy and particular history to alleviate the suffering of all others. Now, I'm not usually someone who's satisfied when people quote scripture at me without giving some examples of what this can look like in practice. So I'm going to give you some examples of how Jewish tradition emphasizes that we enact this value of being a people for others. The first is tzedek, or justice. And as it famously says in Deuteronomy, justice, justice you shall pursue. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdov. And actually, the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg had this framed in her office. And the reason is because this commandment is directed at judges. It talks about how judges shouldn't take bribes, how they should judge everyone fairly. And so, according to our tradition, we believe that God wants us, our human institutions, our legal institutions, to work for everyone. The second big practice is tzedakah, which comes from the word tzedek, justice. It usually is translated in English as charity, but it's more this idea of giving justly, of alleviating poverty, of giving to the poor so that everyone has food, clothing, shelter, medicine, and education, and that we need to alleviate economic disparities. And then the last example I'll give is called Gimilut Chasadim, acts of loving kindness. And this is much more of the interpersonal way, right, we engage with each other, through volunteering, through treating each other with dignity and respect, caring for the ill and the elderly. Now, these are all things that are self-evident. You don't have to be Jewish to believe these things or to practice them. But each of our traditions has their own beautiful way of speaking to them and reminding us that it's really easy, as Father Greg said, to stray from these values because we're human beings. And so if we can each find stories, inspiration, and texts to go back to, they can keep us going. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Zietman. And there are so many ways to volunteer on this campus. I hope each one of you gets the chance to try one out. Now, we will be moving to Reverend Dr. Ebony Grisom, otherwise known as Rev G, who is our Director for Protestant Christian Ministry. Rev G will be talking about the Jesuit value, faith that does justice.
Thank you, Maya. You can find the definition of faith that does justice on our website, in brochures, and as Father Greg said, on banners around campus. Its definition is rooted in the Jesuits' understanding of Catholic social teaching and the Gospels. My understanding of the Gospel as an ordained American Baptist clergywoman helps me to hear resonance with my pan-Protestant identity that's rooted in the Black church tradition. The Jesuits formalized their justice commitment at General Convention 32 in 1975. There they wrote, "The mission of the Society of Jesus today is the service of faith, of which the promotion of justice is an absolute requirement. For reconciliation with God demands the reconciliation of people with one another." In my ear, this sounds like this commitment is another post-Vatican II development, expanding the church's relationship with the world outside of its then recently opened doors. On campus, we say that we express faith that does justice in our centers for research and dialogue, community-based learning courses, social justice immersions, and direct service to marginalized communities. But my faith teaches me that it also happens inside of our faith communities with faith formation that links the gospel message to human connection. How do we embody Christianity so that we value our relationships with God, the vertical, with our relationships with our neighbor, the horizontal? What can we do to manifest our prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven? I pray that our faith grows strong enough to pull heaven down to earth with our prayers and our actions that allow us to commit to justice. The Jesuits formally committed to justice 435 years after their founding, and Georgetown adopted faith that does justice 2 years later, some 188 years after its founding. This shows us that tradition need not be synonymous with stagnation. This is especially true of the Christian tradition that claims a risen Christ, is animated by the Holy Spirit, and worships a living God, which is to say, our tradition is alive and active. The Gospels of Matthew and Mark record Jesus' reminder that our greatest commandment is to love God with all of our hearts, souls, and minds, and to love our neighbors as ourselves. Dr. Cornel West says justice is what love looks like in public. May our faith beget love on the hilltop and everywhere we trod, for the glory of God.
Thank you, Rev G. That was incredibly powerful. And now I would like to introduce Imam Yahya Hendi, who will be speaking about the Jesuit value, interreligious understanding.
My friends, welcome to Georgetown University. Interreligious understanding is a very Jesuit value, but also has basis in Islam. In the Quran, we read, if God had wanted, God would have made all of you the same. As if God is challenging us Muslims to believe that the world would not all be of one religion, of one faith, or one single religious orientation. It will be different. But for me, that challenges us to understand that power lies within diversity. Strength lies within diversity. Our ability to understand that we are much better together, not only one. This requires understanding. This requires learning. This is why also the Quran says, تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم. Come to a mutual understanding between us and you. Let us sit at the table. Learn from me. I want to learn from you. Listen to me. I want to listen from you. I want to listen to you, because I will become better at listening to you. And I want to understand you from within, not from without. At Georgetown University, we value this interreligious understanding. We value it in the chaplains tea we offer. We value it in the course, to which 20 of you already signed up. Interreligious encounter. Imagine where you have a classroom, you walk in, you have a rabbi, you have an imam, and you have a Catholic priest. Sounds like a joke, you know. We are all teaching this class for 3 hours every week for 4 months. We will agree, we will disagree, but we will agree that we can disagree without being disagreeable. We can agree to disagree, that we don't need to agree on everything. In doing so, I'm not going to give up on who I am. Actually, it deepens my understanding of who I am. I learned from my own life here at Georgetown University, 27 years. I learned from my work in comparative religions that in studying others, you learn more about yourself, but you also learn how to value others being with you at the table. With that, my friends, there are so many religious services offered every week. Attend them. Attend religious services of other communities. Make sure that once you graduate, you have attended a religious service of every other community. Learn about others from within, not from without. We are all in this together.
I hope those 20 of you enrolled in that first year seminar make your rounds around campus ministry. That's quite a unique class. Well, thank you so much, Imam Hendi. And now, last but not least, certainly not, we have Brahmacharini Shweta, otherwise known as Shweta. Shweta is our director for Dharmic Life, representing a whole bunch of faith traditions within her office. And she will be talking about the Jesuit value, community in diversity.
Thank you. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome. I'm talking about community and diversity today, and I just want to point us to the website where you'll find a really beautiful quote by Father General Arturo Sosa, where he says, "Higher education involves recognizing diversity as a constitutive dimension of a full human life." And when I think about this, I think just last year, this was probably a given anywhere you go. But today, this reads to me like a crucial reminder of what higher education is, what the university is. That it's uniquely meant to be a place where you'll have the opportunity to both study and engage with the diversity of the world. It was in a college classroom where I learned for the first time that the religious tradition I practiced, the tradition I felt I knew so well and that no one could possibly have anything else to say about because I knew it so well, I learned that my tradition was just one of many, many distinct Hindu traditions. I learned that Sikhs, Jains, Buddhists, Hindus, and the many other dharmas that not only each have a wide variety of beliefs, ranging from theistic traditions to non-theistic traditions, but each one is also molded by the localities and social realities that practitioners find themselves in across the globe, be it in the US, Nepal, or Trinidad, just to name a few. And this is just the world of the dharmas that I just described. While you are at Georgetown, regardless of your major, you will learn that there is a broader context for everything. And these contexts converge, and these points of convergence are oftentimes people. There are hundreds of us gathered here right now. That's a lot of people, that's a lot of contexts, and that's a lot of converging. And this diversity is what makes us who we are at Georgetown. It's there whether we choose to recognize it or not. But community in diversity is a choice. Community begins when you choose to step out of the context you know to see and learn the context you don't know. Community begins when you choose to understand the words of your history book through the story of someone who's lived that history. Community begins when you choose to recognize that your flourishing on this earth depends on the flourishing of the world around you and vice versa. And so community is a choice. We also know far too well as fellow humans what happens when we forget about community. Somehow we lose sight of human dignity, of human safety, we marginalize, we harm, and we cling to the dangerous idea that I need not engage with you because I've already made up my mind about you. We tend to choose comfortable opinions rather than informed mutual understanding. But we can choose to learn from one another, and we can choose to try and understand one another. The fact that you're here, signed up to earn a degree, is a testament to that choice. And this is a choice you can really take seriously here at Georgetown. So as you locate the student groups and spaces on campus where you feel most at home, choose to pay attention to the variety of campus offerings that are not familiar to you. Let yourself notice the unfamiliar and make the choice to explore it with an open heart and open mind. And you're welcome to start with us. Maybe you've never heard of a Brahmacharini before, and maybe you're wondering, why in the world does she wear yellow every single day? I do wear yellow every single day, every single day, every single day. So ask us when you see us. If you have a question, come ask us. We welcome your questions. We welcome your curiosity. I also fully acknowledge that by no means is this easy work. Sometimes it's very hard work, it's heavy work, and it's deeply personal work. And sometimes you'll need to give yourself space, but let the space you take guide you back to choosing community in diversity. In my own Hindu tradition, there is a teaching from the Upanishads that says, Atithi Devo Bhava, which means the unexpected guest is divine. So I'll leave you with a question. When a world of experience, people, and ideas now find themselves at your doorstep, how will you answer the door? Welcome to Georgetown.
What a question. This diversity is what makes us who we are. I think that's a very powerful line that I took away from that. Now, it is my pleasure to open up the Jesuit Values Panel to your questions. If you look right to the front, where there is that microphone over there, all students are invited to line up and ask the chaplains questions. There is no right or wrong question, and the chaplains are more than happy to hear you out. While you guys are thinking and hopefully assembling, I can go ahead and start by asking the chaplains, and we can answer in whatever order is most comfortable. If, let's say there's a student coming to Georgetown who does not belong to a specific faith tradition or has never attended a religious service before, where should they start? Apart from the website.
Yeah, I can take this. I think all of our colleagues on the stage, we mentioned in some way, shape, or form that all of our gatherings, all of our services, they're open to everybody. Anyone can come in, and our goal here is not to make anybody more Hindu or more Jain or more Sikh or more Muslim or more Christian. That's not our goal here. Our goal is truly to just share what it is that we do, the diversity of what we do. And I'll just say that I also fully acknowledge that we all find meaning in different ways in life. For us, religion plays a big part, but we realize that religion is not everything for everyone, and there's different places that everyone's finding meaning. We love to hear that. We love to chat about that. Pull us aside if you want to have a coffee and chat about, maybe it's a movie that really moves you and you want to talk about it. Maybe you saw some nature somewhere and that really moved you and you want to talk about it. Come see us. We love talking about what brings meaning in life. So please don't let that be any bar because we're sitting here, well, I'm sitting here in a costume. Don't let that be a bar to chat with us about anything.
I would say three things, very brief. Number one, invite us to invite you out for lunch or dinner. And many of the, I think every chaplain on the stage love to do that. Let us know when you want to go out for lunch or dinner on your own with others, whether here at Leo or elsewhere off campus. We would love to engage you one-on-one. Number two, you heard chaplains tea, chaplains tea, chaplains tea. Dream the word chaplains tea. That's where you meet us one-on-one. You come to our offices. We're open to talk to you. And that's where you start the friendship with us. Number three, be honest about and willing to force yourself to come to our offices. We're not going to convert you. I promise you. We're going to be there with you to meet you where you are. Come to our offices just to sit and talk. Bring your coffee, bring your tea, and be yourself.
I also want to add thank you, yes, to what my colleague said. Campus Ministry has a calendar on our website of all the different services and holidays for all of our ministries. So if you're even just wondering, when is there an event, you can find that there. You can also find it on our social media accounts, things like that. But one thing I'll add is I know it can feel intimidating walking into a sacred space that you're not familiar with, especially of a tradition that might not be your own. And it's okay to email us ahead of time and say, what should I wear? where should I sit? Is there anything I should know? I love when students contact me because they, want to make sure that they're kind of entering the space respectfully. And then introduce yourself to us. We want to make sure we know who you are. And then the other thing is, if you're someone who's not comfortable going by yourself to an event, we can send a student to meet you at the front door to welcome you. This is not something that you have to do by yourself. If you'd rather first meet someone from our community, chat with them, and then they can be your buddy for the service.
Perfect. Well, again, I will echo the invitation for any and all students to come and ask the chaplains a question. We have a little bit of time left, but we would love to hear the questions that you guys have. If not, they're available in their campus ministry offices, which are right in Healy Hall, if your tours have not showed you yet. But I guess I will ask another question. Oh, would you like?
All right, this is kind of a random question. How do you balance learning about other people's faiths while also staying strong in your own faith? I don't know if that's a good question to ask, but yeah.
Yes, I believe the question was, and correct me if I'm wrong, how do you balance learning about other faiths while also
staying strong
with your own? Thank you.
I think part of it is kind of how you approach it. One of the recommendations, Rabbi talked about going to a service with someone. Maybe you get to know more about other faiths through friends, people you get to know in class who are from other faith traditions, something as simple as that, and maybe going with a friend to another service. The other is just, I guess, having a curiosity to learn more about the diversity that makes up Georgetown University. Interim President Groves this morning, that was his central message, right? About that being our strength. So explore what that diversity is all about. Most people, 4 years from now when you guys are seniors, what we hear from seniors is exploring other faith traditions actually made my faith tradition stronger. It made me stronger in what I believe by learning more about others.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Okay, my question is, why did you decide to become a deeply religious person?
I want to say that. For me, the word religious might mean different things to different people. The way I define it from my own tradition is that when you are there for others. So the question could be, how did you decide and why did you decide to be there for others? That, for me, makes me religious. That makes me spiritual. Spirituality for me is not only 5 daily prayers, though they are a part of who I am. They make me what I am. Prayers and meditation, thinking of God and reflecting on Him. But for me, the true sense of religiosity is when I am there feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, and sheltering the homeless. And I decided to do that because that's where I find God.
I might want to just share something else, and I shared this with a few of you a few nights ago, but when I arrived in undergrad, well, first of all, if you had told me when I was an undergrad that I would be sitting up on a stage before the entering class at Georgetown University as a Catholic priest, I would have laughed at you, truly. When I entered undergrad, in some ways, I felt like I had outgrown my faith, that it had become somewhat irrelevant. But what I really found over the course of my years in undergrad, and I did not attend Georgetown, but I attended another Jesuit university, was that I wasn't being told what to think, I was being told to think. And to think about, we've talked about meaning. And to think about these larger questions, and to be well-informed, and to arrive at my own understanding, which I tend to think is God's understanding as well, from this perspective. But it's that notion of, it's all, I think, we were given both heads and hearts, minds and emotions, to use all of that in this pursuit. So it's a great, thank you for the question.
And thank you for answering, of course. Thank you.
Students from the class of 2029 come from so many different faith traditions and backgrounds and believe so many things about what is true in the world, including all of what you believe and more. So when they're having conversations about those different ideas of what is true and good in the world, how do you keep those conversations from becoming zero-sum?
That's a great question, and I think it's something we encounter as well when we're having conversations. I might just share just from my own perspective, if it helps to just for me to illustrate how I come to these conversations. Even within my own faith tradition, I see myself more so as an explorer of the tradition than a spokesperson for the tradition. And I tend to like to bring that part of me to these kind of conversations when we're having conversations about our different faith traditions and all of that. And I say that because not a single one of us can speak for our entire tradition, right? And sometimes that gets lost when we're having conversations. We sometimes might feel this pressure to feel like we have to speak for our tradition. And the reality is that we're coming to the traditions in very, very different ways, as everyone has already said. And so humanizing these conversations, right, is so, so important. To remember that, okay, well, I come to this as an explorer in my tradition. Maybe there's some things that I'm vibing with, some things that I'm not necessarily vibing with. But it's an exploration of maybe its truth, maybe its meaning, whatever it is. That's how I come to the tradition. And so I try my best to sort of keep that at the foreground rather than, well, there's this quote unquote truth that's presented in my text and I'm about to shove it down your throat. Like that's not what we're about, right? When we have these conversations. So I might just say humanizing them, like remembering we're all trying to figure it out. We're trying to figure out what these texts say, these traditions say, what these practices are, but also like how do we fit into all this? How do we make meaning in all of that? Yeah, I don't know if that directly speaks to what you asked, but.
I would add, and that was very good, the only thing I would add is one of our Jesuit values is what we call the presupposition, which is one of the ones we did not talk about. But in the presupposition, you presuppose that when you're in conversation with someone, that the other person is coming into the conversation for the good. And that's a dignity and respect for each other in terms of how you enter the conversation, especially a conversation where you're searching for the truth in an environment and a city, quite frankly, like where we live right now. And I think that value really speaks to your question.
So I know that religion is heavily rooted in ideals. And, actions that take place on the global stage are expressions of ideals innately. And oftentimes they can directly conflict with your philosophy. What are your opinions on, global policy actions that don't necessarily align with your ideals, but sort of make sense in the context of a specific nation or with their current situation? I don't know if that makes sense or not.
I'm going to jump into this because I think that's a really good question. And I'm going to take issue with your premise that religion is about ideals, because I'm going to say that religion is about experience. From the Catholic faith, the experience of Christ's resurrection is what faith is all about. And for the people who experienced that 2,000 years ago, what developed from that was not based on ideas or thoughts or beliefs or creeds. It was based on experience, and it was based on love. and it was based in an experience of love. So to me, your question has to be directed back to relationship, to love, to dignity, to care and concern for the other, and that's a piece that's missing from a lot of that. It's not about, if it's rooted in that, if it's rooted in that relationship idea, I think that's much more powerful because then it's rooted in love.
I'd also love to address that question. Thank you for it. I think it's important also to remember that we see the actions of nations done in the name of religion to be able to separate out the governments of those nations and, right, the people in power at any given moment, right, with the vast diversity of what that tradition actually entails. And I think that's always the struggle of a clergy person, of trying to really talk about the tradition and all the ways in which people, from lay people to those in power, relate to it, interpret it, how they use it. So I like to see my work as being able to teach about all the ways in which people relate to our tradition, so that it's not just seen as the ones who, you know, have the biggest stage get to decide it for everyone else.
Okay, thank you very much.
In the interest of time, I do want to check in and say that we are already at 2:55, but that is totally fine, and it is amazing that we are here gathered in so much dialogue together. I do want to stay respectful to the NSO schedule, and I know that you guys have a facilitation after this, as an OA myself. Talking about these Jesuit values themselves, I will leave it up to the coordinators, I guess, to decide. I think we can take a couple more questions, and those with remaining questions, you guys are more than welcome to stay here and ask the chaplains. We don't want to cut you guys off, but just in the interest of keeping everything moving, maybe one or two more?
Just two really quick questions. So one is there any like Catholic confirmation services held like at Georgetown? And the second, a little bit more broad, is at what point would you guys say an irreconcilable like spiritual belief clashes with an open mind?
Just quickly, if you want to talk about confirmation, yes. So you can ask me about that, and we have a whole thing for it, a program for it. So yes, definitely.
I love that second question. The way that I think about that is, again, if I approach this work of entering my spiritual tradition as an explorer, there's meaning I'm trying to find in my own life that I feel that maybe this tradition or the traditions I encounter have some language for. Then I continue exploring and letting ideas and words, thoughts kind of affect what I'm already thinking. I feel like that's like a crucial part of what we do, right, when we explore, is to let ourselves be affected by what we're reading. And then sometimes, yeah, the tension does come up oftentimes when we feel like we can't let go of a certain idea that we have in our minds, right? And it's not letting go. Maybe it's transforming. Maybe we're feeling that it's starting to look a little different than we were so used to. But I feel like that open mind piece, though, is kind of what pulls us forward. It's like that hand kind of holding our hand as we move through these spiritual explorations. So being unafraid to let ideas kind of shape who you are and to watch them kind of change and shift as you encounter them. My sense is we're doing the open-mindedness correctly if that's happening.
Thank you very much.
I had the great privilege of being able to hear from some of you guys at Encounter, the interreligious pre-orientation program. And one thing that I really got out of it is just really how intelligent and thoughtful all of you are and a lot of the people involved in campus ministry. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about the importance of interfaith dialogue in an academic setting specifically, like why Georgetown brings to have a Jesuit Values Panel, like why they choose to bring it into the spotlight in a college setting specifically.
Hey, thank you for a wonderful question. You know, many of you, not every one of you, will one day be in the work task for, you know, you are going to be an entrepreneur, a business person, in diplomacy, whatever you may do. You will deal with people from other faiths. At Georgetown for 4 years, we will help you, we will prepare you to deal with that religious diversity that you will encounter in the workforce. Nowhere in the world will you have the ability to engage every religious community, not only academically, but experientially, in a manner that will prepare you to be a good doctor, a good business person, a good pilot, a good whatever you may be, like Georgetown University. That's why we do interfaith dialogue and we engage you in it. Number two, religion has been used to advocate much violence for so many years, but it also has been used to advocate goodness and peace in the world. Maybe in the future we can engage religion or religions to become advocates for peace, dialogue, and justice. Here at Georgetown, we will help you learn how to build the network with which you work to help you become that peace and justice advocate, able to engage all the religions at the table.
I think as succinctly as possible, having this kind of panel and this opportunity here challenges the commonly held notion that intellect is one thing and religion or spirituality is another thing that's totally separate, and there is nowhere that these meet. Some traditions actually say that that's a heresy. So our aim, and hopefully our embodiment and our witness, is that it is possible, maybe even ideal, to be both intellectually sound and spiritually deep.
Thank you.
At this time, I hate to cut you off, but I would invite everyone with a remaining question and anyone else in the crowd to stay behind and ask our chaplains themselves. They're more than welcome and ready and happy to hear your questions. But to everyone, chaplains, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. And students, thank you so much for your questions and future questions. Your chaplains are here to support you. You can stop by their offices in Healy Hall, you can ask your OA where they are, or find their emails on the campus ministry website. Our Orthodox Christian chaplain, Father David Pratt, was not able to join us today, but he looks forward to seeing you all on campus soon. Chaplain's Tea will be held on Tuesdays at 3 p.m., starting on September 2nd. And I hope this was a well-needed break from the craziness of NSO. Take a deep breath and get ready to talk about it. Thank you so much for listening and engaging, despite it being so hot. Remember that campus ministry is a resource. That's all.
Right. I'd like to thank our student moderator and our panelists once again. You will now stay in your orientation advisor groups to discuss the content of this presentation. So yes, y'all can see y'all are already following your OAs to your assigned classroom. Please continue to do that. Thank you for coming out and spending this time with us. As Maya said, if you got any questions, come forward.